My sister eloped for love on the very day she was supposed to marry Gabriel, the crown prince of Beijing's elite circle, and he turned around and slipped the ring onto my finger instead. He spoiled me into becoming the most envied rich wife, and even his notoriously hard-to-please grandmother patted my hand and praised me. Now this is the kind of wife our family should have. Until 3 years later, when my sister returned to the country with cancer, my mother cried until she fainted right in front of me. Just take it as your mother begging you. Let Luna have her final wish in her last days. My brother dragged Gabriel over and pressured him. She only wants to wear a wedding dress once. If you still consider me your brother, then fulfill her last wish. My father gave a direct order. If Luna closes her eyes without getting her wedding, then I no longer have a daughter like you. Gabriel pulled me into his arms in front of everyone. Diana is my only wife. But within a month, he was still forced to go down on one knee, put the ancestral ring on my sister's finger, and go through the entire wedding ceremony, with reddened eyes. He explained, holding this wedding is just so you won't end up at odds with your family. It's also a way of seeing her off on her final journey. I was moved by the sacrifice he had made for me. I watched them hold a wedding of the century and go on a honeymoon around the world, until the day I needed spousal identity verification to register my pregnancy records. And the nurse flipped through my marriage certificate with suspicion. The serial number on this doesn't exist at all, and the official seal is wrong too. When I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to verify it, the record showed Gabriel's legal spouse, Luna, my sister who was supposedly about to die of illness. So their act had become real. They held the wedding and got legally married. And the marriage certificate I had held for 3 years was the fake one all along. I was utterly disheartened when Gabriel discovered that I was not crying or making a scene and instead scolded me for needing to be sensible. I smiled and pulled out the red marriage certificate I shared with his sworn enemy. Sorry, I'm already married. This time, it's real. Chapter 1. I pushed the marriage certificate back across the counter. That can't be possible. Could there be some problem with the system? Please check again. The staff member's cold voice directly sentenced me to death. Ma'am, it will be the same no matter how many times we check. The system shows that Mr. Gabriel's legal spouse is Luna. The registration date was 1 month ago. And you are unmarried. That slap landed across my face, burning hot with pain. Instinctively, I protected my lower abdomen. Yesterday, Gabriel had pressed his face there and said he wanted a daughter. Today, he gave me a gift this huge. I hailed a taxi and went straight to Gabriel's company tower, at the exclusive elevator to the private residence on the top floor. My fingertips hovered above the scanner, and then I suddenly realized a laughable fact. After 3 years of marriage, I did not even have permission to step into his private territory. Madam, the assistant hurried after me in a panic. Gabriel is in an important meeting. Swipe the card. I heard my own voice turn icy. I'll go upstairs and wait for him. Under my pressure, the assistant swiped the card. The moment the door opened, the cold air rushed over me carrying a heavy cloud of perfume. The instant I looked up, I caught sight of 2 overlapping figures on the frosted glass by the floor-to-ceiling window. I froze in the doorway. Luna's sickly voice slipped into my ears. Gabriel, you let me stay here to recover. If my little sister finds out. She covered her lips and coughed twice, but the tail of her eyes flicked provocatively toward the doorway. She's the youngest daughter. Since childhood, she's never liked sharing her things with anyone. My brother and I could indulge her in everything else. But when it comes to you, she pouted with grievance, gripped Gabriel's tie, and leaned in close in an intimate gesture. I really don't dare tell her that all these years, you've actually been waiting for me to come back so we could register our marriage. If she finds out that we lovers finally got our happy ending, do you think she'll be able to take it? Lovers? A happy ending? I stumbled back a step. So that was it. On the other side of the glass, Gabriel's voice was filled with a tenderness I had never once heard from him before. That's enough. Don't mention her anymore. Did you take your medicine? His thumb lightly stroked the corner of her lips. You've been coughing for so long. It hurts me to see it. Silently, I withdrew the step I had already taken forward. As I turned away, the assistant rushed out after me in a panic. Madam, why are you? I ignored him and quietly walked into the elevator. Chapter 2. After I got home, I instinctively walked toward the study, turned on the computer, and thought about drafting a divorce agreement. But on second thought, If even the marriage certificate was fake, was that step still necessary? With a bitter smile, I pulled open the drawer. My fingertips brushed against a hardcover photo album I had never seen before. The moment I opened the first page, my breathing stopped. Luna at 18, white dress fluttering. Luna at 20, her smile bright beneath a graduation cap. Luna at 25, standing by the sea, her long hair flying in the wind. At the corners of every photograph, there were traces of repeated caressing. On the back of the last one, there was a single line written in a sharp hand. Luna, it's been 3 years. You finally came back. As I cried, I suddenly laughed out loud. So for these past 3 years, in corners I knew nothing about, he had been looking through her photos all along. So when my parents and brother begged him to marry Luna, the slight trembling in him was not because he felt I had been wronged, but because he was excited. So on the day of their wedding, when he cupped the bride's face and his eyes turned red, it was because his wish had finally come true. And I, fool that I was, had actually thought he was my salvation. I closed the album and put it back where it had been. Suddenly, my stomach churned violently. I rushed into the bathroom and retched dryly. When I looked up, I saw my own deathly pale face in the mirror. Only then did I finally remember why. On the day we registered our marriage, that staff member had acted overly cautious around Gabriel, and why that marriage certificate had not even been printed in front of us. If he did not love me, then why did he marry me? Chapter 3. The sound of the door lock turning startled me awake. Diana? Gabriel's suit jacket was draped over his arm. Why didn't you turn on the lights? I happened to pass by old Chen's porridge shop. Come on, little glutton. Drink some porridge. The fragrance of the porridge drifted over, but my eyes stayed fixed on his shirt collar. That provocative lipstick mark was as glaring as blood. When I took the porridge, I could not help letting out a laugh. What are you laughing at? Gabriel asked. Nothing. I took the porridge. It's just that I suddenly feel like I'm part of your little game. His brows furrowed, and he was just about to say something when his phone suddenly lit up. The lock screen notification clearly displayed, wife. But that was not me. My hand trembled, and the hot porridge spilled onto my pajamas. Gabriel hurriedly pulled out tissues, and his phone fell to the floor with a smack. He quickly locked the screen, thinking I had not noticed. He naturally moved on to the next topic. The special assistant said you went to the top floor of the company tower today? I quietly drank the porridge, the spoon lightly stirring the bottom of the bowl. I wanted to hear how else he was going to explain this away. Then you should have seen it too. The top floor isn't suitable for someone recovering from illness. His tone was calm. Luna is moving into the house the day after tomorrow. The spoon knocked against the rim of the bowl. Suddenly, I felt pathetically ridiculous. I had actually thought he would feel guilty. The master bedroom is spacious. It's suitable for her recovery. He lowered his head to adjust his cufflinks. His tone casual. You can move into the guest bedroom for now. When he saw that I said nothing, he took it as silent consent. And also, there's a charity gala next week. A few pieces from the family collection are going up for auction. I'll send you the list in a bit. But Luna wants to go, and she said she wants to wear your starry sky dress. Give her everything. I cut him off and looked up with a smile. The patient comes first. His expression stiffened slightly. Then he smiled in relief and bent down, wanting to kiss me. I turned my head away, and the kiss landed in empty air. Diana. He let out an unhappy sigh. Are you still upset? I'm doing this for your sake, aren't I? He raised a hand and rubbed his temples. Was I supposed to just stand by and watch you fall out with your family? Shouldn't you appreciate my sacrifice? What a tremendous sacrifice indeed. Was it the sacrifice of the chance to register his marriage with his white moonlight? Or the sacrifice of spending a spring night together with her on the top floor? I heard my own numb reply. You're right. Those 3 words pleased him. His brows relaxed, and only then did he turn toward the bathroom with peace of mind. The sound of running water filled the room, and his phone lit up again. I stared at the flashing screen and, as if possessed, reached out my hand. One message from Luna after another popped up. Gabriel, my last wish is to have a round-the-world honeymoon trip with the boy I loved in my youth. Look, I made this itinerary myself. I opened the file she had sent and scrolled through it page by page. A sunset suite in Santorini, a candlelit dinner beneath the Eiffel Tower in Paris, a breakfast for two on a gondola in Venice. They were all places he once said he would take me, but never did. Suddenly, my fingers began trembling uncontrollably. So all these years, I had only been a cheap stand-in, filling the emptiness left by the white moonlight he could not have. With the same sweet words and the same promises, I suddenly remembered that rushed wedding of ours. There had been no wedding photos, no honeymoon, only a meal with the family at the old residence. That day, he had not even prepared a bouquet for me. He had only sworn to me again and again that someday he would make it up to me with a grand ceremony. Later, that promise was brought up over and over again, only to be shelved every time because he didn't have time. And now this very busy man could put aside all his work and accompany his newlywed wife through every step. From the betrothal gifts to the honeymoon, so time could always be made after all. It was just that I was not worthy of it. I locked the phone and put it back where it had been, my fingertips icy cold. Let's just say that for 3 years, I fed it all to a dog. When Gabriel came out wrapped in a bath towel, I was putting away the bowls and chopsticks. Diana! He wrapped his arms around my waist from behind. The maid can take care of this. Didn't you text me today saying you had a big surprise for me? I tugged at the corner of my mouth and instinctively placed a hand over my lower abdomen. I lied to you. Chapter 4. The special reminder tone on my phone the next day alerted me that there was a family dinner to attend today. I had always held a measure of respect for the two elders in the family. No matter how absurd this marriage had become, I could not afford to lose my manners in front of my elders. I put on light makeup to cover the exhaustion from a sleepless night. When I arrived, the carved wooden doors of the old residence were half open. Just as I was about to push the door and enter, my movement froze on the spot. Sitting in the place that should have belonged to me was Luna. She was wearing a simple white cheapao, her long hair pinned up, lowering her head as she sipped the soup Gabriel handed her. Luna, this soup is good for the stomach. Drink more. My father-in-law and mother-in-law showed not the slightest sign of making things difficult for her. I remembered the first time I attended a family dinner. My mother-in-law made me stand to one side and serve the whole family while they ate. Only after everyone had left the table was I allowed to sit down and eat the food that had already gone cold. And Gabriel had only said lightly, "Big families have a lot of rules. You've been wronged." So the rules only existed for the people who were not favored. My fingertips dug into my palm, yet I could not feel any pain. I turned my head, wanting to leave. Diana? Luna suddenly looked up and pretended to be surprised when she saw me. Come sit down. The whole table's gaze shot toward me like arrows. Gabriel strode over and seized my wrist. Why did you come? Wasn't I supposed to? I asked him with a laugh. Mom and Dad thought we were divorced. I whipped my head around to stare at him. So I was the only one who had been trying to act mature and preserve appearances, afraid that this absurd farce would hurt the elders' feelings. And they, all of them knew, and had all silently approved it. At this point, there was even less reason for me to stay. I don't feel well. I want to go back and rest. No. His grip tightened. Luna asked you to sit with us. If you leave, she'll definitely start overthinking again. Gabriel! My voice trembled. Diana! He cut me off sharply, his eyes cold as if he were looking at an unreasonable stranger. You suddenly showed up today. Don't think I don't know what you're up to. My eyes reddened instantly. At the dining table, Luna immediately began coughing as if her life depended on it, as though she would stop breathing the next second. Gabriel let go of my hand without the slightest hesitation and rushed over to her. Not even glancing at my staggering figure, Luna spoke weakly. Diana, are you still blaming me? If you leave now, that means you refuse to forgive me. Gabriel's face darkened. Diana, sit down. I did not move. With a single look from him, two maids immediately stepped forward, one on each side, pinned my shoulders, and forcibly pressed me into the chair. Be more reasonable. Gabriel's voice was cold. Don't make everyone uncomfortable. I let them restrain me, already unable to feel pain anymore. Seeing that I did not struggle, the man pinched my hand in satisfaction, then turned back to Luna's side and continued taking care of her with meticulous tenderness. And I, like an outsider, was pinned into the farthest corner seat. My sisters-in-law and younger sister-in-law whispered and giggled softly. Some people have occupied that place for 3 years, and still don't compare to someone else coming back for 3 days. Exactly. My brother wanted a divorce long ago. He only dragged it out this long out of consideration. Sister Luna is so wonderful, gentle and generous, unlike certain people, always wearing that cold expression all day long. I endured all those cold, cutting remarks. Only after the banquet ended did I stand up and say goodbye to my in-laws. My mother-in-law nodded perfunctorily. I may be strict, but I was raising you according to the standards for the mistress of the household. But you? Out in those nightlife places every single night. If Luna hadn't told me, I never would have known you were this low in your bones. All the blood in my body froze in an instant. So this baseless accusation was the farewell gift my own sister had prepared for me? Mom, Gabriel suddenly spoke, his brows tightly knitted. Stop talking. I looked at him and felt a little better inside. At least he still knew to defend me. But in the very next second, he wrapped an arm around Luna's shoulders. Luna's heart is weak. Don't let her hear this kind of filthy stuff. I was left speechless. So the man who had shared my bed for 3 years could not even bear to say a single sentence for me, that I was not that kind of person. Chapter 5. The night wind was cold when I walked out of the old residence. In the past, every time I came here, Gabriel and I arrived as a pair. This time, I had come alone, and I was leaving alone too. A notification suddenly popped up on my phone. Secrets of the rich, crown princess of a wealthy family cast aside. Older sister takes her place. The attached photo was from their wedding day, showing my back as I had been seated at the servants' table, and the comment section was full of mockery. I heard she goes to nightclubs every night to hook up with male models. She deserves to get divorced. The table the ex-wife sat at was added at the last minute. It even had one fewer set of cutlery than the main table. The rich family's attitude couldn't be clearer. A 3-year marriage without even one child. Gabriel probably didn't even want to touch her. Now that the real one is back, certain people should have the self-awareness to disappear. Hilarious. The stand-in finally got kicked out. After 3 years, it all came full circle back to her. No need to say who the true love is, right? I calmly turned off the phone screen. I remembered how, 3 years ago, the moment Luna's scandal hit the trending searches, Gabriel had summoned the PR department overnight. Every piece of negative news disappeared within 3 hours. And now, as false rumors about me spread everywhere, he did not care in the slightest. Just as I reached my doorway, my phone started vibrating like mad. My mom, Luna wants to take a family portrait. Hurry to the studio. My dad, don't be so insensible. She doesn't have many days left. My brother, if you dare not come, then don't blame me for not recognizing you as my sister. I let out a sigh. Luna and I had the same father but different mothers. She had been raised by my mother, even though I was my mother's biological daughter. I could not replace Luna's place in her heart. Luna was right. Ever since I was little, I had never wanted to share my things with others, because they never understood that everything they could get just by reaching out. I had to claw out of the dirt with my fingernails to earn. When mom and dad handed out allowance money, they would forget me, the youngest one. Even the housemaids could never remember that I was allergic to mango. Several times, the desserts they made had nearly killed me. Even on the day I got married, my mother cried and said, if Luna hadn't been lured into going abroad, the bride today should have been her. And now, they wanted me, the woman whose husband had been stolen from her, to appear smiling in the family portrait and play at harmony. My phone vibrated again. This time it was Gabriel. He directly sent me a location pin. Come here immediately. I gave a cold laugh and turned off the phone. This time, I had no intention of pleasing anyone ever again. Just as I was about to go inside, 2 unfamiliar men suddenly rushed out. One grabbed each of my arms. What are you doing? I struggled violently. Let go of me. The black car sped through the night, and I gripped the door handle tightly. A kidnapping? Revenge? Or, it was not until the car came to a screeching stop in front of the photo studio that I suddenly realized Gabriel had kidnapped me. Shivering all over, I was shoved inside. Luna was leaning against Gabriel's chest, dressed in a snow-white wedding gown. Diana's here? She said with a sweet smile. Will you stand next to me? My brother suddenly grabbed me hard, afraid I would make a scene. She can stand next to me. You're today's star. As the photographer adjusted everyone's positions, I was squeezed little by little toward the edge. When the photos were finally taken, I trembled as I tried to leave. Luna suddenly walked up to me and whispered in my ear, "Diana, are you a turtle hiding in its shell? I stole your husband. Why aren't you hitting me?" I knew she was provoking me. When we were at home, she used to enrage me again and again like this. Once I struck her, she could show off her own boneless fragility. But this time, I did not move. It was not worth it. I turned to leave, but she suddenly threw herself backward, and the ripping sound of her wedding dress was painfully sharp. Everyone instantly surrounded her. "Diana!" Gabriel was the first to rush over, and he slapped me so hard that I fell to the ground. "Apologize." My ears rang violently. That fall had been too rough, and a sharp pain suddenly stabbed through my lower abdomen. "Gabriel." I suddenly realized something was wrong. I bent over, clutching my stomach. "My stomach hurts. Take me to the hospital. Quickly." Inside my belly was the child I had been longing for 2 whole years. "You're pretending to be sick over one slap?" Gabriel sneered. "Luna has terminal cancer and isn't half as delicate as you are. Diana, you're just as dramatic as you were when you were little." My mother glared at me. "Luna doesn't have much time left. Can't you just give in to her?" My brother grabbed my hair and forced my head up. "She hit you in the face. And you're clutching your stomach. Who are you putting on this act for?" They all crowded around Luna as they left, and not one of them looked back at me. I curled up on the floor of the photo studio, and the screen of my phone was stained red with blood. At last, I pressed the number I had not touched in a very long time. "Come pick me up now." "What you said before. I agree to all of it." Chapter 6. It was 10 at night when Gabriel brought Luna back to the villa. He went straight to the master bedroom on the 2nd floor. The door was tightly shut, and it was easy to tell that the person inside was feeling upset. "Diana." His voice was 3 degrees softer than usual. "I told you before that I was going to let Luna come here to recover, and it's also because you pushed her at the photo studio today. In her current condition, I really can't feel at ease leaving her alone, so I had no choice but to bring her back early." His knuckles rapped against the solid wood door with a dull thud. He continued, "I told you before, you should move to the guest bedroom for a few days first." Before he could finish, Luna suddenly coughed softly beside him. Gabriel immediately turned around, but froze the moment he gripped the doorknob. The master bedroom door was unlocked. The darkness seeping out through the crack in the door made his heart tighten abruptly. He gently pushed the door open. Moonlight spilled in through the floor-to-ceiling window. The bed was perfectly made, and there was no sound from the bathroom either. It did not look as though anyone was inside. "Gabriel," Luna called to him timidly. "Is little sister still angry at me?" Gabriel came back to himself and only let out a cold laugh. "She's really learned how to throw a tantrum." "Good. That saves me the trouble of making her move into the guest bedroom on the spot and hurting her self-respect." He irritably loosened his tie. "Don't worry, she'll come back tomorrow." He said it with certainty, yet failed to notice that his emotions had somehow gone strangely blank. After going downstairs, he frowned and asked the maid, "Did Madam not come back today?" "I'm not really sure either." The maid lowered her head, but Madam left her keys on the dining table. Gabriel had only just furrowed his brow when Luna's sudden awe startled him. When he turned back, he saw that her eyes were red. "It's all my fault. Is it because I took her place that she doesn't want this home anymore? And doesn't want you anymore?" Gabriel rubbed his temples. "She knows you're recovering from illness. Don't overthink it." Not until he helped the woman over to the sofa did he clearly see the wedding ring on the coffee table, and his heart suddenly skipped a beat. That plain band ring he had bought so casually, I had treasured and worn for a full 3 years. When I bathed, I was afraid it would slip off. When I cooked, I was afraid it would get scratched. Even after he had long since put on the wedding ring he shared with Luna, I had never once taken it off. And now, it was lying there quietly on the glass coffee table, unnoticed by anyone. Chapter 7. Cough, cough, cough. A burst of light coughing disrupted Gabriel's thoughts. He hurriedly helped Luna upstairs to rest. It was as long as he did not look at that ring again, nothing had changed. The next morning, Gabriel had just opened his eyes, his voice still hoarse with morning sleep. "Diana, there's an international meeting today. I need to wear." He stopped halfway through the sentence. He had nearly forgotten that I had left home in anger. During all those days and nights after our marriage, as long as he was home, I would always have his suit pressed in advance and come at the sound of his voice. But today, lying beside him was another woman who needed his care. Her sleeping face was beautiful, but for some reason, he had no mind to admire it. So he got up by himself and went to the walk-in closet. As the automatic sensor lights came on one by one, he suddenly realized that half the wardrobe had been emptied out. Gabriel? At some point, Luna had come to lean against the doorway in a silk nightgown. I checked the flights. The woman's lips opened and closed as she said something, but he only stared blankly at the half-empty wardrobe and did not hear a word. His thoughts suddenly drifted back to the day Luna returned to the country. Everyone had demanded that I give up my husband, and I had cried, saying it was unfair to her. After coming home, I had also packed my bags in anger like this and wanted to leave. But in the end, just because he said, "I want to eat the dumplings you make," I tied on an apron and went into the kitchen again. But this time, I had left so quietly, as if nothing could keep me anymore. "What do you think of this plan?" Luna excitedly waved her phone. Only then did Gabriel come back to himself. "Go to the Maldives? Can your body handle it?" "The doctor said my numbers have been very good lately." A flush rose on her pale face. "Just think of it as helping me fulfill my final wish, okay?" He thought for a moment, and in the end, he still nodded. At dinner, my mother's call came in. Luna already told me. The voice on the other end was full of affection. "Take her out to relax for a while." As for Diana, "Mom," Luna suddenly snatched the phone away. She glanced at Gabriel, who had been distracted the whole time, and sobbed. "Don't make things hard for Gabriel. I'm not going anymore." She coughed until she could not straighten her back. "Anyway, it's not like this is some final wish that absolutely has to be fulfilled." Gabriel patted her back gently. "Don't say nonsense. I have to tell Diana about it." Just as he was about to call me, my brother strode in and snatched the phone from him. "You don't need to tell her. If she finds out, she'll definitely try to stop it. Just wait until you get to the Maldives and then tell her. By then, even if she makes a scene, it won't matter." Hearing that, Gabriel had no choice but to give up the idea of informing me in advance. It began to rain outside the window. Gabriel suddenly remembered that I was most afraid of thunder. The last time there was a stormy night, I had curled up in his arms and said, "If one day I disappeared, would you come looking for me?" How had he answered back then? "Even if you ran to the ends of the earth, you still wouldn't escape the palm of my hand." But now, Luna coughed lightly, pulling his thoughts back. He looked at that pale little face and told himself that he was only fulfilling the final wish of someone about to die. Diana was the one being petty. What's more, this was still my sister. Before the private plane took off, Gabriel, as if driven by something he could not explain, opened our chat window. The conversation had stopped 4 days earlier. "Come home early. I have a huge piece of good news to tell you." He stared at that single lonely green bubble, his finger hovering over the keyboard. After hesitating for a long time, he finally sent a message. "Luna and I went to the Maldives. We'll be back next week. What gift do you want?" A glaring red exclamation mark immediately popped up beside the message. Gabriel's fingers froze. Had I blocked him? Chapter 8. "Gabriel?" Luna came over wrapped in a silk scarf. Her gaze swept over his phone screen, and a trace of coldness flashed through her eyes before she immediately put on a pitiful expression again. "Is Diana still angry at me?" She bit her lip lightly, and her eyes reddened at once. "It's all my fault, if it weren't for this useless body of mine." Gabriel locked his phone. "Stop overthinking." Once that moment of inner conflict was interrupted by the woman, the trip finally began as planned, but he remained distracted the entire way. When they arrived at the hotel, Luna immediately pressed herself against him. "Gabriel," she leaned close to his ear, breathing unevenly. "Now we're legally married. What are you still hesitating for?" Gabriel caught her wandering hand, his voice tight. "Your body still hasn't recovered." Luna bit her lower lip unwillingly and let her whole soft body fall into his arms. "But I can handle it." Gabriel absent-mindedly patted her back, but his eyes remained fixed on the phone on the bedside table. The screen lit up and went dark again, but the familiar number never appeared. "I'll go pour you a glass of water." Using that as an excuse, he got up and stood before the floor-to-ceiling window, lighting a cigarette. After only a few days, He was already desperate to go home, and he was becoming more and more suspicious of Luna's behavior. The day before, she had been so weak she could barely walk. Yet the very next day she could run and jump on the beach picking up seashells. Gabriel, she came back from the sea in a bikini, her skin lightly flushed from the sun. The doctor said sunbathing helps with my condition. When he went back to the room to get something, he accidentally knocked over her bag. Among the bottles and boxes that spilled out, one box of ovulation-inducing medicine stood out especially. The expiration label showed it had been opened just last week. He recognized it because, over the past 2 years, I had taken that medicine in order to give him a daughter. When he thought of how his wife had once vomited until she was barely conscious, yet still gritted her teeth and comforted herself by saying, "It's okay. It's just some vomiting. It doesn't hurt that much. Let's try one more time." His heart suddenly ached a little. But, could someone with terminal cancer take this? And even if she could, what was she taking it for? Gabriel snapped the suitcase shut and immediately dialed his assistant. "Check all of Luna's chemotherapy records in the country, right now." Half an hour later, the assistant called back. "Gabriel, we checked Central City Hospital and the cancer hospital. There's no treatment record for Miss Luna." The assistant paused. But what? "We found Madam's miscarriage record." The date was, the assistant's voice tightened. Last Wednesday, the day of the family portrait." A loud buzz filled Gabriel's ears. He remembered my deathly pale face at the time, remembered the way I had bent over clutching my stomach, remembered the words he himself had said. "You're pretending to be sick over one slap? Luna has terminal cancer and isn't half as delicate as you are." His fingers trembled as he immediately dialed my number, only to hear that cold automated voice, "The number you have dialed does not exist." Gabriel could not believe it, and he refused to believe it. His child, the child he and his wife had been hoping for over 2 years, had been lost by his own hand. In a panic, he called my mother. "Mom, did Diana go back? Where is she?" The sound of mahjong tiles came from the other end of the line. "That girl, 7 Bamboo. Who knows where she's hiding to sulk? You just take good care of Luna." His brows drew tightly together, and he called my brother. "Has Diana contacted you? Hurry and find her. She's a grown woman in her 20s. What could happen to her?" My brother said impatiently. "Did Luna have fun today?" Gabriel suddenly found it absurd. This family's coldness toward their own biological daughter, their own younger sister, was no different from how they would treat a stranger. He was so angry he cut off the call. But in truth, was this the first time he had learned that this family favored Luna and neglected his wife? No, back when he and Luna were engaged, he had already noticed that stubborn, neglected younger daughter. She had been bullied horribly, yet her eyes were astonishingly bright, like a lighthouse on a dark sea, and that made him remember her face for no clear reason. Back then, when Luna went abroad, was it just out of spite that he proposed to her? No, he had truly thought about giving her a home with family who would love her. And now, with his own hands, he had turned her into a child with no home. In his confusion, he had thought he was waiting for someone, waiting for an unfinished love. But in truth, that person had been by his side all along, and that love had already been deeply lived. Chapter 9. The moment the plane landed, Gabriel rushed straight back to the villa. A servant was wiping down the vase in the foyer. Seeing him storm in, travel-worn and breathless, she hesitated before speaking. "Sir, Madam hasn't come back even once since you left the country." His steps halted, then he turned around and headed back out. But the moment he pulled open the car door, he froze again. Go to Luna's house? That family had once left Diana home alone with a fever of 104 degrees Fahrenheit while they all went on a trip. How could they possibly care where she was now? He scrolled all the way to the bottom of his contact list, only to realize in shock that he did not have the number of a single one of my friends. For these past 3 years, the entire center of my life had been only him. "Sir," the driver asked cautiously. "Where to?" In the roar of the engine, the old master's call came through. "Since you're back today, go to the auction immediately. That brat Justin has been making too many moves lately. Go over there and hold the line." He was just about to speak when his mother snatched the phone from the old master. "So you still know how to come back? I sent someone to investigate that nightclub, And the surveillance shows Diana never even went there. I said it from the start, how could the daughter-in-law I chose possibly be that kind of shameless, unreasonable woman? That Luna is full of lies. If you hadn't acted first and informed us later, I would never have allowed her into this family. Gabriel's heart clenched sharply. He had shared my bed for 3 years. How could he not have believed me? It was only because he thought Luna had spread those rumors about her own younger sister to make their parents accept her, and because he feared exposing her would worsen her condition, that he had not even said one sentence in my defense, that I was not that kind of person. He had even allowed the tabloids and gossip accounts to spread that forged evidence everywhere. How desperate must his Diana have felt back then? He was dazed and muddle-headed, and before he knew it, he had already arrived at the auction venue. If not for the pair of jade earrings displayed on stage, he might not even have realized he was already seated in the audience. He suddenly remembered that I loved collecting jade. Just as he was about to raise his paddle, 3 million. That familiar voice immediately caught Gabriel's attention. He turned his head and saw Justin lazily holding up his bidding paddle, while the woman he had been desperately longing for sat beside him in a dark green dress. A faint smile on her lips, the kind he had not seen in a very long time. Diana! He rushed over, but tripped on the carpet and crashed hard onto his knees. Diana. So this is where you were. I'm back. Come home with me. I looked down at him, my gaze calm, as if I were looking at a stranger. That look, empty of both love and hate, pierced him deeply. Diana, what's wrong with you? It's me. In what capacity does Mr. Gabriel want me to go back with him? I let out a laugh, my tone faintly helpless. Of course, as my wife. Diana, listen to me. I can explain. Luna and I were just. Does someone who spent 3 years holding a fake marriage certificate really count as a wife? I idly turned the diamond ring on my finger. Gabriel's face changed dramatically. You know? I'm sorry. I can explain. His voice trembled. I'll divorce her immediately. 1 month, just the mandatory cooling off period. And then, he reached out to grab me, but Justin blocked him. Sorry. Gabriel. Justin suddenly wrapped an arm around my shoulders. She's my wife now. Keep your hands to yourself. Gabriel froze. In the next second, he shot back coldly. Diana was married to me for 3 years. Other than not having that piece of paper, we were no different from a real married couple. Back then, you chased after her so publicly and she still didn't marry you. Now she and I have loved and understood each other for 3 years. Why would she suddenly marry you? Facing Justin, Gabriel instantly regained his confidence. That's right. Back then, Justin had pursued me, but that was only because I had once warned him at a party not to drink a glass someone had drugged. And he owed me a favor. Before the wedding, I asked him to help me fend off trouble for a while. As long as he kept up the appearance of pursuing me and the news spread, my parents would not dare offend him, and naturally they would not casually drag me off into some marriage alliance. But Gabriel, the crown prince of Beijing's elite circle, was not afraid of him. After Luna ran away from the wedding, he turned around and proposed to me. Since I was little, I had envied Luna. I always thought everything that belonged to her must be something good. I could not say I truly liked Gabriel, but I did not dislike him either. At the time, desperate to escape my family, I agreed. The ridiculous part was that back then, I thought Justin and I were only putting on an act, while he had actually been sincere in pursuing me. If I had really nodded yes, he really would have taken me, and the Gabriel I chose deceived me for 3 years with a fake marriage certificate. Now, it was time for me to give the right man a sense of security. I took out the little red marriage booklet I had just gotten from my bag and said word by word, sorry, this time it's a real marriage, with a real marriage certificate. In the red background photo, I was smiling brightly. Gabriel's vision went black at once, but then he heard Justin drive the knife in deeper. Oh, and by the way, I'd suggest you look into why Luna ran away from the wedding 3 years ago. Justin bent down and murmured another sentence into Gabriel's ear. That woman who made me wait 3 whole years for my goddess? I've stripped her background cleaner than your face. On stage, the hammer came down. Justin stood up and publicly presented the jade earrings to me. Chapter 10. Only after investigating did he learn that, back then, Luna had taken an 80 million yuan bribe and leaked the new energy specifications of Gabriel's family company. Only then did Gabriel finally understand that, from beginning to end, he had been the fool being played. That woman he had cherished with all his heart. The woman he had waited for 3 years for had nearly ruined his family company and driven a wedge between him and his wife. Gabriel, the assistant said hesitantly. Miss Luna is making a scene at the development meeting. She says she wants a divorce and insists on getting half the property. Gabriel did not say a word, nor did he do anything. He only kept appearing in front of me again and again like a wandering ghost. He stood downstairs in the rain until late at night, when the security guard could not bear it anymore and handed him an umbrella. He stubbornly shook his head. She has to see me. At the cafe I often went to. He pushed a document toward me with trembling hands. I set up a fund in your name. Didn't you always want to help those children in the mountain villages? When I was about to leave, he blocked me with red-rimmed eyes. Diana, let me make amends. But I was tired. I never looked up at him again, until one time, when he mentioned the child we never got to have. My steps paused slightly, and my voice was so soft it was almost inaudible. Back then, I had even already picked out a name for her. Gabriel instantly dropped to his knees, as if the strength had been pulled from his spine. Chapter 11. Later, one day, when I was trying on wedding dresses at a bridal shop, the saleswoman reminded me that there was a staggering figure outside the glass window who had been peering in the whole time. I turned my head and saw Gabriel holding a wine bottle, his clouded eyes fixed on the wedding dress I was wearing. Justin was somewhat displeased and immediately stepped in front of me. When the man outside saw that, he barged straight in. The lock screen, he said hoarsely, his trembling finger pointing at the phone on the table. Where is our photo? On the lock screen was a picture of Justin and me skiing in Switzerland. I calmly picked up the phone. Gabriel, snooping on someone else's phone is against the law. It was as if those words pierced straight through him. He stumbled back 2 steps, and the bottle smashed onto the floor. I don't believe it. It's been 3 years. How could I possibly be less than him? I was only confused for a while. I was a victim too. Luna didn't just lie to me. She lied to everyone. Diana, give me one more chance. We can both get divorced and go register again together. All right? The owner of the bridal shop did not recognize the famous Gabriel. Seeing her customer being harassed, she immediately told security to throw him out. I continued trying on my wedding dresses, completely unaffected. The glass door slammed shut heavily, but Gabriel's voice still came through the crack. Diana, I'll give you an explanation. Wait for me. His obsession grew like wild vines. A week later, Luna was tied up and taken into a private hospital, where she was injected with a special drug. Gabriel stood outside the hospital room, watching coldly as she went from struggling to weakening, until the doctor confirmed late-stage lymphoma. Does it hurt? He asked her through the glass. Does it hurt more than a miscarriage? You like pretending to be a cancer patient, right? Then spend the rest of your life with real cancer cells. And before long, Luna's family company went bankrupt under Gabriel's twisted methods. My brother was also arrested for business-related crimes. My parents knelt in front of me, crying bitterly as they repented. We were blind. That ungrateful girl deceived us for 20 years. Save your brother. As long as you go back to Gabriel's side, you can save your brother and save the family business. I let out a cold laugh and directly held a press conference to sever ties. Even if the law would not allow blood relations to be cut off, I still wanted to announce it to the whole world. I would not give 1 cent less than the legal minimum support required, nor would I give 1 cent more. When Gabriel learned that I would rather sever ties with my family than go back to his side to get my brother out of prison, he finally realized that there was nothing left in this world that could threaten me. Later, Justin gave me a wedding of the century, broadcast live worldwide, and the news of Gabriel's car accident came in the middle of that night. I stood outside the ICU, looking through the glass at his body covered in tubes. Not long after, he stopped breathing. The nurse could not pry open his tightly clenched right hand, so she looked at me pleadingly. It seems to be for you. It was a birthday card soaked through with blood. When I opened it, his strong handwriting had already bled into smudges. Diana, I was very lucky to meet you.